Where are we at? I guess today's we're going to kind of cover off jamming and Pack D. So we'll kind of put both in the same session as I don't think we need to go as in depth because you can go down so many rabbit holes with defense and that kind of thing. So we're just kind of do the basics of it. Again, kind of I like to do a little bit more discussion rather than talk with you guys. So we'll have kind of breakout rooms and that kind of thing. Just share my screen. Yeah, so I guess a lot of this comes from Mick and Mal. We're pretty lucky to have both these guys in our city leading the jamming space. And so Mal's got a really good webinar from a clinic in Australia. Has anyone seen that or watched it?
Yeah, I've seen bits of it.
Yeah, so it goes like really in depth into why jamming and some stats and that kind of thing. So I'm not going to do that today. But if you want to watch it, I'll send the link out for those that haven't seen it. Yeah. So I guess jamming is a defensive transition concept, but it starts on the rise of a shot. And then we're just trying to get forward and tag our opponent. That puts us in a position to compete for the rebound, but then we're mainly in a position now to slow down the offense transition. So I'll just show some clips of Mal's Australian team doing it. So you would have seen. Huh?
Don't mean to interrupt, George, but any questions May should be able to answer because we've already done it. So.
Oh, mate, you're gonna be able to pump here.
No pressure.
It's either she doesn't know or you did a poor job of teaching it, Sam. So
probably the latter, but see.
Hold on, I just didn't start recording. Hold on, I just need to check that all right. So just some examples of that Mel sent through what she's created. So a shot goes up and all the Australian players are going forward and they're running into the high side of their Japanese defenders here, making contact. Now they're all in a position to compete for the glass. They get the rebound and they get an easy layup. Another one. Shot goes up. Bit of a terrible shot. Skip that one. So shot, jamming, they're all going to move forward, make contact with their player. So in a jamming on her, on the high side of her, coming around onto the high side of this defender. They're competing 50-50 and they get another shot. So I guess I will show the one against the Port Kiwi Girls. They got beat by 40 in this game. It's not pretty. So again, a shot goes up. She's in the position to push it down, get a rebound. 10's running in over here. 4 crashes too. And they're just in a position now to compete, play defense. So that's kind of the idea of it, just so you can see some clips. And then we'll kind of dive into it a little bit more and show you some more clips. So I guess what are the risks versus benefits of jamming? So you saw those kind of the clips there. So what we'll do is we'll jump into some rooms and you guys will discuss what are some risks of being on the high side, jamming down, trying to compete for the glass. So I'll put you in breakout rooms and just going to discuss the risk and the benefit of jamming versus more a traditional style of like sending 2 to the glass or 3 to the glass instead. 1, 2 rooms. Sweet. All right, let's do that. So we'll just have like a couple of minutes discussing some risks versus benefits.
I guess probably the one.
Yeah, you go, Ken. You go, Ken. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Just like not covering leakouts, like is a huge thing, especially with like the younger ones who still, like, as they're learning it, they just think it's running everyone into the hoop and haven't actually outlined if someone leaks without covering that.
Yeah. Biggest thing for me is like having them buy into it. Like I got cheat codes here. I talked to Mel about it already, and we kind of had the same similar points. If they don't really believe in it or buy into it, it's hard to do it, because it's something that you really need to be able to believe in, and it's difficult to get them to do so because it's so different to what they'd be traditionally taught or used to. So getting the buy-in is like a big thing to do initially, I think, so that you know, they have a bit of belief. Otherwise, you know, if they don't believe in it, they're not going to they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Maya, from a player's point of view, what kind of have you found with this?
That if the whole team doesn't do it, everyone tends to get a little bit lost, because then they'll get their offensive, they'll get the rebound and then fast breaks will go down, but the rest of the team's kind of just lurking around.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's got to do it for it to work.
As a player as well, how have you found it, like, after a while of doing it, does it become natural to want to jam up, or is it still something you have to like actively think about to do?
I think from playing it quite a lot with most of my teams, it's kind of just a reaction that you do. The only bit that it gets a bit harder, you got to think about it more, is if you're shooting. It's hard to go from shooting to then finding your defender and jamming them.
Okay, sweet.
For me, one of the biggest disadvantages, I think, is also the mismatches it creates. Unless you've got guys who really trust being able to make their switches late in the defense, then it's like you just get a bunch of mismatches, or you get people that can't defend full court and they're having to guard who guards them, and they just get blown by, or they give that meter space and someone's just coming downhill at them and they can't stay in front.
Yeah. Flip side of what you guys are talking to me about is that once you know what you're doing, it kind of gets rid of all confusion, because like you should all know what you're doing and everyone's doing the exact same thing, even if you are the shooter. So it kind of like it gets rid of that decision making process. It should just be a snap thing that you can get straight into, because you know it's what everyone's doing and it's only the one thing.
100%.
What are some other benefits then?
It can increase both sides of rebounding, offensive rebounding in a game, but also your defensive rebounding, because you have to be able to do it in training to be able to know what you're doing. And on the flip side of that, you need to be going against defense, so it teaches your team to be able to box out and rebound the ball defensively, so it can increase your rebounding ability on both ends of the floor. And
I think another thing that it helps with is more spatial awareness. So you know where the other team is, and even if it is a mismatch, you know where the player is that you're on, and it kind of helps. So then if say they get the rebound and they're going back down on offense, you're not so lost because you've got a fair idea of where the person is that you're on. So you've just had your arm on the back of them.
Okay.
Anything
else to add?
I was just going to say, like, in transition as well, even if they do manage to get the board, like, they're not, unless they've got someone leaking out, the person with the ball isn't able to quickly ignite the trans that often, because there's someone like right on them straight away that they got to worry about.
Yeah, I agree. It's the relentless ball pressure. Like they're on their heels for 24 seconds of every shot clock, just because there's someone right in front of them. I think it's the biggest benefit,
Yeah,
and that's the benefit that outweighs all the detriments, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It works well for you guys, AJ.
Sometimes, unless you got Jack Exeter or something, just ripped by anyone, you got dominoes straight away.
Yeah, I think that's where it's potential weaknesses in the guys like a Jack Exeter or like, you know, Russell Westbrooks. That once they get that little bit of steam up,
Yeah.
you've got no one back to protect. But then if you do it properly, you might be able to slow them down enough that they can't
Exactly.
get that head of steam
Yeah.
up.
If you got someone that gets blown by every time in transition, you just send them back. Just don't even get into jam. They just go back to the hoop,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
which we have a couple.
Yeah.
You may.
Wow.
It's not you, Mayor.
Oh, not you. It sounded like you said
I
like
was
you,
gonna
Mayor.
say.
I said not you, Mayor.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Oh, you're lucky.
All right.
Yeah.
Screen again. You guys missed some banter with Sam telling Maya that she can't play full court man-to-man defense.
You guys are fucking full of things.
You
All right.
can't,
My mind is
you can't
potentially
tell
cutting
the
out.
stories without throwing people under the bus, can you?
Yeah. No. All right. So what are some people's risks that they have with the idea of jamming?
One that we talked about was if one player doesn't do it, then that allows their player to leak out, and of course you've got no one getting back, so that can allow, lead to a pretty easy layup.
Yeah. We talked about that too. What else?
Mismatches in front court, especially with younger teams who like aren't quite switched on enough to talk the switches.
Yeah.
Switch backs. Yeah.
What else? What were you talking about, Sam?
I was just waiting, Shane's blending something in the background, so I was just waiting. We talked about having athlete buy-in. If they don't buy into it, then they're not going to commit to it 100% of the time, and it'll just fall apart. So making sure they have an understanding is it also goes against what they've been taught traditionally. So it can take a bit of time for them to buy into it.
Yeah. Nice. What about some benefits of it?
You're right on your.
Helps with decision making.
Yeah.
So you should know. Everyone should know what they're doing because it's just one thing. You don't have to make a decision. Are you going or are you getting back? It's just it's black and white. You're jamming and that's it.
Yeah. What else?
You're matched up a lot quicker in trans, so as soon as they get the ball, everyone's got their match up straight away. Well, should do if they do it right.
Yeah. That's what Maya mentioned when she was talking about being a player. She's not having to find who she's matched up. She knows because they're right there as such. Anything else, Jack? What were you talking about?
Unmute yourself, bro.
Oh, crap.
That's terrible. Speak for 15 seconds. Yeah, the relentless ball pressure and like the quick positioning, like Liam mentioned, and then an obvious one is like 60% more O boards. That's what we found. It's huge difference.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening with Josh.
60%.
Yo, I'm here. Sorry, I just
You're
had
right.
to mute.
Yeah. Wait. Yeah, I reckon, wasn't it? We went from, I can't remember the numbers exactly.
Let me have a look at mine.
9 or 10. I want to say 9 or 10 to 15, 16.
Yeah. Oh.
Do you know, Jack, what the numbers were for your trans D? Whether your trans D actually got better
I would say we were probably giving up 100% more trans buckets for the first probably like 5 or 6 games of the season, and then it got a lot better.
Yeah.
Got a lot better. I wouldn't know the numbers after that. It was terrible at first.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, man.
What do you put that down to? What particular aspect?
What was that, sorry?
What particular aspect of jamming do you put that down to that?
Yeah, I don't know. If it was definitely a combo, Zach. It was leak outs. Oki, we versed Oki a couple times early on. He just blow by guys when we had mismatches. And
yeah, one of the things which like I try and like, which is hard to kind of teach them or get them to understand is like when the jam happens and they're going into their player and like trying to make as much contact and close the gap and push them down as much as possible. But as soon as their player gets the rebound, you almost can't like keep that same close gap. You have to then take a step back and obviously assume like
it depends who it is. It's true though.
Yeah.
I just jumped to my stats from last year, and our offensive rebounding rate for Girls High was 41% across the
That's
season.
outrageous. Don't think.
So yeah, we got 41% of all of our offensive rebounds that were available.
That's nuts. I think we might have been like 20% up from like 15 or something. I have no idea. 40%. So 40% of your field goal attempts got an offensive rebound.
Yeah.
Was it Mel's team like that Aussie team like 50% or something like that?
Yeah, hold on, let me just pull that up. Hold on, where's my downloads?
Which is crazy if you think about it. You know.
Hold on, let me just try and find Mel's stats. They were 51%.
It's just ridiculous.
So
That's absurd.
Yeah, 1 in every 2 shots they'll get in their rebound. It's pretty crazy. So I think it just shows the power of being able to get offensive rebounds. Right. These are just some of the kind of risks and rewards that I had. And we're kind of all touched on bits of them. The other one from like our perspective running it with the girls, you have to be pretty fit and have a deep team to do it. There was times at nationals where we started getting tired, and we started getting killed a little bit more in transition than normal, just because the girls were exhausted from 9 games in 6 days or whatever it ridiculously is. So that's one, like, you have to do strength and conditioning for sure if you're trying to do it.
Were you doing it 100% of the time in every game, or were you just calling different reads? You were?
Yeah, that was our like go-to, and then we'd either press off a make or something like that to mix it up. But then we're in a position to be able to do that easily because they're real full. I guess some of the key teaching points of this. So on the release of the shot, everyone's moving forward, jamming up or tagging their player. Get on that front foot. We want to be on the high side of the defense and scrum down with high hands. Does anyone want to share why we want to be on the high side rather than, I suppose, the low side?
Because
Go, Maya.
Because if they're behind you and they get the rebound, then it's easier for them to get down the court and you have to recover instead of already being in front of them.
I like it. So the priority of it's been defensive transition. So we don't want to give up our defensive transition positioning to try and get a potential rebound. So that's kind of the main teaching point. I'll show you some Girls High clips. Sorry, Sam. It's always against ring. You're all right.
Because I'm the only one that films for you. No one else films.
So I guess one key aspect of this is having good shot selection and knowing what shots your team wants enables you to jam better. So Courtney here has already started moving into jam because she knows Sammy's going to shoot that shot, because that's what we want to take as a team. So she already knows it's a predictable shot that she can start. Look, she's already going. And then she's jamming on that high side. She's driving down. Violet's coming over the top here. Erin's kind of run by a little bit, this is early on in the season. We're working on that. But all of them are in the paint in a position to rebound, and Sammy just happens to hit the shot. But everyone's there. Go, Sam.
That one where Erin's run by, that was terrible defense from Jazz, though.
Yeah, she just let it.
Yeah, she just let her go by. So does she still need to stay behind her for transition purposes, or?
Well, I guess that's up to you as a coach and your philosophy and what you think you can deal with. Like, Sammy's in a pretty decent position to potentially cover that, and then I guess Erin's relatively mobile. So
it probably depends on whether is Jazz likely to leak out as well.
Yeah.
So because if she is obviously, and Sammy misses that shot and you get the rebound stand, then that's an easy layup for Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, knowing like Jazz is ball hungry and wants the rebound, so she's probably going in anyway. So, yeah. Again, Violet's on the high side. Erin's coming down. Courtney's down here. Erin's there. All of us are in the 3-point, inside the 3-point, and the smallest person on the floor ends up with this rebound, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So again, we're all in a position to get on the glass and compete and make it a 50-50 contest, and she just out jumps Brooke and goes and gets it.
Brooke's monkey too, though, because Tanisha's not the fuck all.
Again, this is another really prime example of knowing the shots that we want to take as a team. So Violet's driving here and she kicks it. Courtney's already going, knowing Sammy's shooting there every single time, and she's already kind of in a position to jam. Mia's coming on this corner here. She's getting in the position to rebound or jam. So some people talk about coming from the elbows on this weak side corner. I guess because the likelihood the rebound's going to come out this way rather than potentially right to where Mia is. But she gets in the fight, and then we're all there, 3 of us. We can go get the glass. One more. Just a backside example. So all 3 of them on the high side, contesting, bringing her a box out, and then you're kind of in a position to slow down, be disruptive because you're right there, and we've got our hands on the ball. So that's kind of examples of it in context with high school New Zealand basketball, I suppose. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts from that?
Yeah, can I ask about in our breakout, Liam and Zach were talking a bit about guys who push through for the rebound, and also the prospect of having someone for safety. And it's kind of like they were asking about what mechanisms you can have play to cover for a guy who pushes through for the rebound. What do the guys in the other breakout have to say about some of that? Liam might be able to explain it a bit better.
It's a great question, though.
You're on mute, Liam.
What are you guys sort of saying, like Trav play? So in relation to Trav, who's just like stupidly ball hungry and wants to offensive rebound every time, it's like how much leeway do you allow? And like he's pretty good at it, pretty good at hunting offensive rebounds. So how much leeway do you have for a guy like that? And then do you then decide, okay, well maybe if he's on the floor and we're gonna be getting that, do we then have one guy who we designate who gets back to cover in case, Trav goes in for the O ball and the rebound goes long, and then all of a sudden got a fast break opportunity, but we have one guy back to cover. So I guess what's the leeway for thing?
In Mel's clinic, she talked about how they had that girl, number 10, I think it was on the film, who was a really good offensive rebounder, and she said that she wasn't going to tell her to not go get after offensive rebounds. I guess it's just, knowing your personnel, knowing what, if you know that's what they're good at, you're not going to say, hey, this is not what we're doing, because she's probably in that team for that reason. So
I wonder what I guess probably because the rest of her team were so good at jamming and actually pushing them down, the likelihood of her player then getting a long rebound and going was probably pretty small.
I guess as well that's where that the weak side coming through to the elbow rather than necessarily going to the high side of their man gives you a little bit more safety, I suppose, as they can potentially see someone going and they can release. But kind of if you hold that thought, I've kind of got a discussion around that space in the next couple of slides that we'll talk more about. So have a think about that in the back of your mind, and then we'll talk about it a little bit further. I guess, so now kind of the transition component. So we've jammed up, we're all on the high side. So now what have we got to do? flowing back. And so I guess, like everyone's kind of talked about, we're matched up man to man, and you're guarding who was guarding you. So you might have a point guard on a big, you just got to kind of deal with it. The idea is to flood the ball. So we want the ball handler to see no space when they're coming up the floor. And so if you're on the weak side, you kind of get to the split line and show your body. And then if you're ahead of the ball on the strong side, we want you to take away the kick ahead passes so that they can't just throw it ahead and kind of play in trans. So I guess the easiest way to think is, how do you want to play on transition offense? And then so what are you doing to stop that? And so that's trying to limit penetration and kick ahead passes so that they can't play quickly. So I kind of got a couple of clips of that. So even though this is off a make, we've still got, so this position that Courtney in right now is the plugger position. Petra should be denying this pass, but it's a bit hard for her. Like, she's a big, not really expecting her to do that. And as you see here, Sophie, right, Sam? So as Sophie trying to kind of come middle, Courtney's there providing a bit of buffer so that she can't just go straight up this middle gap, getting easy penetration. So what ended up happening here, they ended up switching that, and now we're in our pack half-court defense ready to play. So yeah, Courtney could be a little bit deeper, but she's just been in this spot here, slowing it down so that the ball handler can't get ahead of steam and just attack. And then if you need to switch, you can. What is going on here? The key part of this on a make, we want to smother, and on a make or a rebound, you want to smother who rebounds it, who's inbounding it, so that they can't just inbound it and go. So Sammy does a really good job here of just smothering the ball, making Stella move to inbound it, and then Courtney's pushing the ball. Right here, Sammy, a little bit slow. She needs to be back in this spot here to stop this middle penetration, but knowing the scout, that ain't ever going to happen because she never going to go left. So Sammy could actually almost be in a position here to run and jump and trap the basketball. So it just gives you, being in this position up full court, gives you flexibility to kind of be conservative and plug, or you can go be aggressive and trap, which is kind of what we did last year. We'd mix it up, just being normal, and then we'd go on a hot sometimes and trap it. And so she kind of gets there, but she's a little bit, right now would be a prime opportunity to trap. Example, we're in a club game, so we've got Ella here. You can't, a bit blurry, good old Glory League film. But she's in this plugger gap, so as Marley is dribbling middle, Ella's there providing the body, just taking up space, and then so Marley kind of can't attack, and she ends up giving it back, and Ella kind of can quick enough to kind of recover, but she needs to do a better job. But then again, Sammy's in the right spot in her gap help. So it's just trying to slow them down so that there's not enough space for them to just flow into their transition offense, and we end up getting a turnover out of that.
On that one, George.
Yeah.
By the time like she gets to halfway, she's pretty much in line with her defender. Would you want her to try be like still...
Yeah, drop a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she needs to be in like a deeper triangle. Good spot, Cam. Yeah, so she's like kind of good, and then she needs to keep sliding a little bit more, but she does enough to slow Malia down.
Okay, all good.
Like if you see right there, Malia sees a little bit of a gap.
Yeah.
And starts going, but then Ella's there, so she pulls up.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of the idea of the plugger. And then kind of lead into our next discussion is like old shit moments. And so this is an example of a baseline spill. And then what do we do in Trans D? So jamming's now out the window. Like these guys didn't really jam. But we've got a guy on the floor here. And now we're playing 5-on-4. So what do? You kind of got an emergency situation. So Mike, your 5's now having to try and slow the ball down Isaiah's got the rim covered, and we actually force a tough shot, and we get out of that situation quite well. So that's just kind of a trans D example. So I guess, where are we at here? So I guess we talked about if you can't get to the high side, you're trying to get to the elbow, provides a bit of safety or move, ability to kind of react, smother that inbounder, rebounder. If your man leaks out, then you got to follow them. That's your responsibility. And then these safety triggers, the oh shit moments. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about in our breakout room for the next couple of minutes is what do you do in this oh shit moment, which might be a baseline spill or a leak out or a live play turnover. Your traditional trans D that we kind of talked about with your plugger and denying kicker heads, that's potentially gone out the window. So what might it look like in your safety situations? And then another discussion is how you're going to deal with your mismatches. So your one's guarding a 5 or your 5's guarding a 1 or whatever it is. So discuss those two things. We will chuck you in the same rooms. All right, so just safety situations and mismatches.
Like a away screen or a ball screen or whatever, or just a couple players on the weak side that you can potentially switch on. Yeah, there's probably not much else you can do in terms of that stuff, in terms of, other than just play guys as best you can with the mismatch.
Did you guys see that? I'm not sure. I think it was Basketball Immersion that posted the other day, and they just rush the ball on it when there's a mismatch, and then they just force a rotation. So obviously, if the ball handler can't be in a penetration, they rush the high side, and then they just like a real quick. I'm not sure what they called it. I can't remember. I just saw it quickly on my news feed. I thought that was quite interesting. Like
it was efficient source, and it was that they called it the hit.
Oh, is that what it was? I can't remember.
Yeah.
And so does that mean like they're just that? So that's to try and get them to just move the ball around, so
yeah,
that exactly take advantage of the mismatch.
It'd been a bit more of a slow down situation, so they've probably done a good job in trans. And then someone from the weak side or the next pass away would just rush the ball.
Yeah.
And then they had a quick rotation. Look, I mean, you'd have to do it with like a pro team. Like, I'd be impressed if a high school team could pull it off.
Yeah.
But I hadn't ever seen it before. I thought it was interesting.
I guess in terms of like it would stop them probably going to take advantage of the mismatch. But then I guess it presents them with another advantage if you're going to double team the ball, and then so it probably depends on how bad the mismatch is, and whether you would rather them take a mismatch of position or whether you'd rather just give them a advantage and hope they mess it up.
Yeah, for sure. But in transition, it's definitely just got to be, you just have to trust your guys to play one-on-one and just do their best to slow and clog and find an opportunity to switch it, eh?
Only pick players for your team that are the same height and length so that you can end up with mismatches.
Switch everything.
I guess is there a way that you can build into your team, I guess, like, for example, like with that Mike clip having to guard Jared Weeks, where they recognise that and the other guys potentially might shrink their gap, so just clog it up a little bit more to help out Mike, or is it just kind of like you just got to figure it out?
No, I think definitely. I think your first priority, I mean, depending on personnel, if it's a downhill guy, you can't give him any paint touch. Everyone shrinks, and if you give up a 3, tough personnel again. I can't tell you now.
I reckon, I haven't thought about it much, but I reckon that you could probably work out some guidelines depending on which way the mismatch is to either play more aggressively on the ball, more conservatively, whether you're going for that plug or that trap. But I haven't really thought about it much.
No, it's an interesting point, Troy, because we talked about that before the Rams season got kind of canned, and that when the bigs and like a kind of a mismatch as such, trying to send sideline as much as possible and then someone come in and run in and double team, and then that can then release the big out of it, if that makes sense. I've forgot my whiteboard. I can show you.
Well, I saw a good half court example of that on Basketball Immersion either yesterday or this morning. It's where they saw a screen or something coming, and they sent a small across to double this on the screen and pick up the person coming off it, rather than the big staying with the person going out to set the screen.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking. Yeah,
switching prior to the switch, or
switching before the screen.
Yeah,
switching personnel before the screen.
Yeah,
when they could see a big was going out to set a screen.
Yeah,
it'd be tough in trans, eh?
Yeah,
sure, yeah.
It's just chaos, eh? You just have to just make the right kind of decision in chaos situation, and then just live with whatever you've got.
So I guess in that oh shit moment, what are you saying to you guys? Protect the ball, like cover the ball and then the hoop, and then you deal with whatever else.
Yeah, I think like I don't know. I always prioritise covering the paint first, because I always find, like, especially probably more so in younger stuff, when they prioritise the ball before the paint, they rush the ball past goes over top, and then they get a lap. So
yeah,
I guess probably depends what level, but like obviously the paint, the ball, and then your pluggers.
Yeah, and what personnel you've got left, because if you've got the appropriate mismatch and you can trap, you can give that person time to get back if you've got the right personnel.
Yeah,
if the right mismatch.
Yeah.
That's why it's so crucial, that we got to be teaching 1 through 5 to guard full court. Like, it's every game, there's no excuse here. Everyone's going to be able to guard baseline to baseline, eh? Not a guards thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess, I was trying to think what my questions were, but then we've kind of talked about them. So, I just think it's your team's just got to know when you're in that like oh shit moment, and that is how do we build that recognition, I suppose, and do you have like a cue so that everyone knows that there's a spill or a leak out, that we're now in a different trans D, I suppose.
I think also the thing that frustrates me as well, say if there's a guy who he's on the floor or whatever, and then there's no urgency to get back, because he can still, if there's an extra pass after they've done a good job of finding the paint touch, and he's jogged and they still the open three, like that annoys me. Like if he sprints through the ball, then you may get a stop.
Yeah. Where do you want to send that guy that's maybe spilled out? Where are you trying to get him to run to?
The weak side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just straight to the rim and just try back up any pass, eh?
Yeah. All right. Does anyone want to quickly share how they kind of discuss dealing with mismatches?
We talked about like making sure that your team knows what's happening in the oh shit moments. So making sure your team knows priorities in terms of like containing the ball, containing the hoop, and then figuring out an opportune time to switch back, whether it's like 2 players on the weak side or off ball screen or on ball screen or whatever. And I guess just making sure that all guys 1 through 5 can do a good enough job of trying to contain things to try and stop the ball handler getting downhill until you can make that switch back.
I think a key thing on that is not switching in during transition.
Yeah.
Like that's just carnage. Let it just deal with it. And then if you get in the half court situation when you can switch back, that's the time. Yeah. The other room, what did you guys talk about around mismatches or oh shit moments?
Yeah, pretty much that. Having your non-negotiables, your priorities, slowing the basketball, getting a man to the rim, or you're pretty much loading up on the ball side for us. But then, I guess also talking about roles if you end up with a mismatch in the half court, like if you've got a small and a big, it's full fronting or trying to take that catch away, or if he gets a catch, going to double. And then also talked about on makes, like you've got that 3-second kind of where, rip the ball out of the bottom of the net and get the inbound. Like usually you can try and find a favourable matchup from there, I guess. Sometimes. But yeah, Liam pretty much covered it there.
We also talked about the idea of like, Zach brought it up of like trying to, I don't know, it's pretty hard in trans, but like trying to find a way to rush the ball handler to make them give it up and then create like almost like a bit of chaos, so that you're kind of like, so that way that gives them less time to take advantage of the advantage that they have. I guess it's like it's trading advantages. You're giving them a positional advantage, or do you cause a bit of chaos and hope they muck it up, and then gives them probably less opportunities to find the advantage that they would have from that positional mismatch.
So yeah, I guess there's a way to kids, huh? There's a way to you can try and double team the ball to get your big out of a potential mismatch, I suppose, is what that is, and then you rotate out of it and deal with that. Yeah. Does anyone else have any kind of thoughts on jamming before we move on to a little bit of pack defense quickly?
I did have one kind of just question about like if you've got your like 5-man being the plugger because his man, like if you're talking about jamming off a make,
yeah,
then if he inbounded it and you've got your 5-man having to be the plugger and he's not that mobile,
yeah,
would you want to like potentially switch that with maybe like your 3 or your 4 and then worry about trying to switch back once you get down the court? Like,
I guess since you're guarding who you're guarding, it's probably easier just to have him plug it, but you might just sit him in a deeper triangle.
Okay.
So he's got a little bit more protection, I suppose, rather than being up higher, if that makes sense, Cam.
Yeah, so he's got like more wiggle room.
Yeah. He's just got to show himself that he's there, so that the guard might think about not attacking that space.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully that kind of. Well, that's anyone else got any differing opinion on that? No. So if you have any more thoughts around jamming, I'll send out the Mal's presentation. I guess that's probably the best place to go in terms of learning more about it from a teaching and the why point of view. So I guess we're kind of jammed up. We have our trans D, now we're kind of back in pack defense. Pack is, we're trying to take away dribble penetration by being in the driving lanes and the gaps versus like a denial defense where we're up trying to deny passes and we've left the driving lanes open. We want to force tough contested shots and then kind of limit. Personally, this is my philosophy. We want to try and be more conservative within our half-court coverages and stuff like that to try and reduce Domino's potential situations, but I guess someone else might want to be aggressive and kind of hedge ball screens or whatever it is. So that's just a personal philosophy of mine. Like we're trying to limit getting in rotation. So I guess just quickly as a kind of a overall group, what are some potential risks of being in pack, being in those driving lanes in the gaps?
You got to close out on every pass.
Yeah.
So first of all, you're giving up the shot, but then also you're making a lunge at the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, and over helping in the driving lanes.
Yeah. So that's pretty kind of much like the biggest risk is constantly having to close out, and if you don't close out properly, you're giving up wide open threes on the catch. So I guess some aspects of that is you've got to have ball pressure. So guarding the basketball is key. You've got to be up so they can't just ping the pass around like a zone defense. Like if you're sitting back, they can just move the ball and they get what they want. So you've got to have a bit of ball pressure. You've got to be able to guard the ball and send them to push points. So guard 2 dribbles. You can't guard 2 dribbles. You're going to be sitting next to the coaches. And so the push points are the elbows and the low hash. So we'll kind of talk about that on the video a little bit. We're trying to get chest bumps with lateral movement, and then again taking away shots, having that hand over the ball. So I'll kind of show some clips. So again, you can see the plugger. There's a ball screen here. We kind of don't deal with that great. In this clip, we have really good movement, but I don't like our pressure. But it's early in the season, so we're trying to work on it. But you can see driving lane, Sammy, Aaron in the driving lane. There's nothing there. We've got active hands. Pretty good job. But no ball. See how they just ping the ball around? There's no ball pressure, so we've got to get up a little bit more, get some ball pressure. Get some ball pressure, girls. But we kind of move. We're in the gap. Sammy's in this driving lane here. And then she knows that there's low shot clock, so she doesn't have to rotate out. And then we force a tough shot. So I guess the positioning off the ball is pretty good in this clip. But again, like you can see, if you don't get ball pressure, they just ping the ball around and there's nothing stopping it. So that's one of those weaknesses of pack defense. As teams can run their sets if you don't get up and put a little bit of pressure on the ball. We talk about trying to be able to guard your yard, like get chest bumps. You've got Violet here, cuts off a right-handed drive, beats it to the spot, takes a chest bump, and actually gets called for draws an offensive foul. So this is the kind of pressure we want. This is South Island's final, so way different. She's up, she's been aggressive, made chest contact. So that's kind of the defense that you need on the ball. Another example. So I'm Sammy, she's up to touch, hand over the ball, square feet, right-handed drive. She kind of cuts her off, gets her going to the elbows here. So that's the push point, so elbow, and then low hash down here. So Sammy does a really good job of not letting her go through the middle, cuts her off, forces Hannah Wentworth into a crazy step back shot. So that's kind of what you're really trying to get to defensively. Just some Rams examples. So look, Aston's up pushing the basketball all the way up here so that the offense can't make an easy pass. You've got Jono in his gap, and these guys are dealing with this screen action over here. But like Luke does a really good job cutting them off, making them change direction, still pressuring the ball, containing, and then challenges the shot. So it's the type of effort you need guarding the basketball in the pack, otherwise it's just too easy for the offense. So it's kind of like a catch-22. You get up trying to pressure the basketball, and then if your kids can't do it, you're just getting blown by the whole time, but you need them to get up there, otherwise it's too easy for the offense. Just another example here. So you see Blanchfield's kind of trying to isolate against Glidden, but you've got Tony in his gap, you've got Emmett in his gap, and he sees no space. There's nowhere for him to attack the rim. So then he has to take a terrible contested pull-up. And so that's like a win for us defensively. Does anyone have any kind of questions or thoughts around that, having seen those kind of clips? No, all right, we'll move on. I guess the key, this is kind of where we get into the key bit of the pack defenses. And if you probably take one thing away from it, is your position is your help. So when you're in that gap and you're one pass away, your responsibility is still your man. Even though you're in a gap and you're trying to stop drives, that's not your job to help as such. You're still guarding your man. The help still comes from traditional help, two passes away or the weak side. And so this is where I'll show some clips in a second, where we get stuck a lot is kids over helping in this spot, and then we give up uncontested threes. So when you're in this position, you kind of have your feet and like you're facing your man, and then using your booty to play effectively defense in the gap. And then that way it's a one-way closeout. So as that person starts driving, you start almost going back towards your man rather than sticking in there for too long. So I'll show you some clips. But the main thing is your position is your help and your man is your responsibility. And then help side, so 2 passes away again, your position is your help, show it. If you're going to help, you're trying to get outside that charged circle or the lane line if possible. And then again, avoid helping on non-threatening penetration, which is stay and go reads. So I've got again some clips just to kind of show, and then we'll discuss for a couple minutes around these stay and go reads. So just some examples of Gills High where we overhelped, and this is just not what we want in the modern age. So as you can see, we get beat here, and then all of a sudden 4 of us want to go help on the basketball, and we're just giving up wide open 3. So I guess who's the help responsibility as she's coming in? Who should it be?
Person with the hoop.
Yeah. So I've got no idea what Elsie's doing, but she decides to help. Whereas what Elsie should be doing is dropping into this kind of rover spot, and then she would be taking the first pass. So she'd drop into here, she takes the first pass, and then Courtney would be running on and guarding the second pass. But as you see, Elsie helps, and now there's no one with even like outside the paint on the catch. We just give up a wide open 3 to a very good shooter. Again, at the start we said we wanted to force tough contested shots. So here on a drive, Mia's there, she's contesting with 2 high hands on a left hand in a girls game, so I'd take the odds of her missing it. So Bella here doesn't need to help. Like, we've got coverage on this, there's a contest there, but Bella over helps, and now we've got poor rotation, but we're now in poor rebounding position and we'll give up a rebound. So really emphasize one-on-one containment and do your job and trust your teammate that they're in a right position. Like, Mia's there contesting that. Bella doesn't need to be there. She jumped and now she's out of the play. So it's just you don't have to show many clips. It's kind of for them to start seeing that they overhelp. But if you can really limit rotations, then you're doing good, on the way to being a good defensive team. Again, so what are the push points up the top here? Elbows. So Courtney does a pretty good job of getting her going wide. Is this a threatening drive right here?
No.
She's going completely away from the hoop, but Mia decides to step in and lunge and help, and now we give up a wide open 3 to, again, the same girl that hit that shot before. We got lucky, and this is a game we won by 3 points. You know, like this is the difference between top 8 and not top 8 kind of thing. So we don't need to help on these drives. Trust your teammates. They did a great job. Push points. Stay at home. Again, Sammy didn't really need to lunge there. Like, trust your teammates. They've done what they've meant to do. And last one. So just an example of probably Violet over-helping in the gap, but good offense. Back to Dominoes, 1 can't guard 2, so she's slid. Violet actually rotates pretty good and closes out. But then as she's driving here, or two of these guys decide to help, which we don't need. Like, she's below this low hash. There's no need for them to help here. Like, Bella might be able to help and then Violet who switch like they did, but then Mia doesn't need to be there. And now we're just giving up a 2-on-1 on the backside, and she really should have made that extra pass. So it's just really kind of drilling in with the team. What are our push points? What are our responsibilities? And then really limiting these help rotations so we're not giving up wide open contested threes and giving teams easy dominoes. Has anyone got any thoughts around that?
I seriously thought you were going to show clips of my team playing bad defense as well, but
I wouldn't do that to you. It was just the whole dominoes session, Sam. Yeah, okay. So I can send, if you want these clips as examples to show like you kind of team what over-helping looks like, happy to share them. The girls might not like it, but screw them. Yeah, I guess just some thoughts around where would your help side position be? Is it going to be the lane line or split line? And what would determine that? So the Tall Blacks, they went to lane line help, so like weak side lane line, because they were so worried about 3-point shooters at the World Cup. But then that put the onus on the guys to guard the ball one-on-one because your help isn't really there. And they'd rather take a contested layup than rotate and give up kick-out threes and free dominoes. So that was kind of their decision. Mick with the Rams, more traditional split line, was their captain spot, and we rotate out of that. So I guess thinking about your team, your roster, your opponents, where you're going to put your help, and then kind of a decision what initiates a go read versus a stay read. So does anyone kind of have any thoughts on that in this last kind of minute or so?
with that lane line help, is that sort of a way, do they use that as a bit of an incentive to kind of drill one-on-one defense, or is that just because they're so worried about 3-point shots?
I think a bit of both.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you help, like, you're never going to be really in a position to be able to help on that lane line, so it forces you to guard the ball. But then again, the threat of 3-point shooting at the international game is so high that they want to be in a position to kind of cover that, I suppose. Just on that, though, they did, obviously, when there's a ball screen or something like that, they would slide into the split line to help tag the rollers, and that a little bit different. But in a general play, they'll lane line.
I think that's also a personnel call.
Yeah, definite personnel call.
Yeah. You got a good shooter, you tell your defense stay in the lane. But if you got a good driver, go split line.
Yeah. And so, like, when we played that Rangitoto game for the girls, in the scout report, it was you're on the lane line. Like, don't worry, split line. We'll live with contested layups and try and take away threes, because they were kind of like us and just let it rip from the 3-point line. So I guess it might change as well, depending on who you're playing. Yeah. I guess if there's no more questions around that, well, that's just some thought for yourself. This is kind of where we've gone, so I kind of put this little diagram together. So we started off with pace phase, and then we talked about dominoes and trying to get kick out threes or whatever to get a great shot. Obviously, if you don't necessarily have anything in that pace phase, you might have to use a trigger, so one-on-one or a get or a ball screen to get into dominoes. But it comes back down to that great shot. Knowing what your great shot is, so then it's easy to jam. So those clips of Courtney already starting to jam up because she knew that Samuel was going to shoot that shot. And then you go from your jamming, trans D into pack, get a good stop, contested, then it goes all over again. So that's just kind of what we've done the last 5 weeks, is a little bit of like style of play, learning, I suppose. Hopefully it's given you some thoughts for the upcoming club season, school season, rep season, around how you might want to play. Does anyone kind of have any questions to finish off around what we've done? Again, this is recorded. I can share you the link.
Just want to play.
Just want to play. Yeah.
Any update on that? Level 2 all good to go trainings or no?
Maybe like skill-based training with no contact, but from what I'm aware, you won't be getting on court playing a game until probably end of July. Is a good guess.
Playing a game against another team end of July.
Yeah.
I can live with that. It's not too far away.
Yeah. Term 3 is probably
not as bad
what
as
we're targeting. So, yeah, I guess lots of time to reflect and plan and try and implement some of this stuff. But, yeah, I guess thanks for jumping on the past kind of 5 sessions or so. And, yeah, looking forward to talking about this further and on the side of the court over rather than Zoom.
Make sure you drip it down to your kids.
Yeah, all good. Sweet.
Thanks a lot for that, George.
All good.
Thank you.
Right.
All
Have a good one.
See you guys.
Thanks, George.
All good.